Alright, everyone, we have dealt with things, property, persons dealing with things and property. And now there's only one other thing left, really. Or it's not really one other thing, we still have rights, sorry. But before we go to rights of a person, there must be actions arising from a person. Right? Now, in law, in this subject, not all actions will be considered in this subject. In other words, not all actions are relevant to this subject. Only actions that are considered as this kind of actions. A juristic action. A juristic act. Only juristic actions or juristic acts will come into our subject. Anything that is not a juristic act does not come into our subject. So you need to know what makes a juristic act. Okay, what kind of actions are considered juristic acts and what kind of actions are not. Because if an action carried out by a person is not a juristic action, it doesn't come into this subject. The examination question, for example, I got your attention there, examination question. The examination question could be describing an action that is not a juristic act. But you may be thinking that it is. You may be thinking that all actions are juristic acts. And you answer that question as if it is a law question. Then you would have gone in the wrong direction and you would have gotten 0 for that question. Because that question does not even come into the subject of legal or law at all. Why not? Because it's not a juristic act. Or in Thai, you call a juristic act a nitikam. A nitikam or a juristic act. So, to recognize what is a juristic act or a juristic action and what is not a juristic act and juristic action, we need to look carefully at the characteristics that makes up such a juristic action. There are actually 4 characteristics. That makes up a juristic act. If an action doesn't comprise of these 4 characteristics, I repeat, if an action, any action, does not comprise of these 4 characteristics, it is not a juristic action, and therefore it doesn't come into our subject at all. Alright? Now, the first, let me just put here, characteristic. Characteristics. Characteristics of a juristic act. First one, as the name suggests, nitikam, juristic act. The action has to be a lawful action. You must be thinking, of course, common sense, Ajahn. Juristic act, lawful action, of course, common sense. Easy. This subject is all about common sense. Well, if you just look at it like that, it's dead simple. I don't even have to sit here and do this video thing to tell you. But, when you try to apply this in real life, in real life, it may not be so clear in every case. For example, a contract to buy and to sell pornographic film. Nang po. สัญญาซื้อขายหนังโป๊ a contract to buy and sell pornographic film. Is that a contract in the first place? What if the seller does not deliver the film? Can the purchaser of the pornographic film claim for the breach of contract? The purchaser cannot claim for the breach of contract. Why? Because there's no contract in the first place. Why there's no contract? Selling and buying of a pornographic film is not a lawful action. A contract is a juristic act. Before you can even think about whether there is a breach of contract or not, or even before you can think about is there a contract or not, there's a fundamental question to be asked. Is the action a juristic act in the first place? If it's an action that is unlawful, there is no juristic action at all. You don't even have to talk about anything else. Another example, a contract to buy and sell gun. If you have a contract to buy gun from a gun shop and the gun shop doesn't deliver the gun to you, can you claim the gun shop for breach of contract? No, because there is no contract. Why? Because there's no juristic act. The only way you can get around that is unless you have already a license to hold arms, to possess firearms, then you can buy. Then it would not be illegal. Then it would be a juristic act. Right? A contract to buy and sell amphetamine pill. Alright, sale and purchase of amphetamine pill. Is that a contract? No, because it's not a juristic action. Second characteristic. The juristic act has to be what is known as a voluntary act. A voluntary act. Voluntary act, meaning that you do the action willingly. Nobody is pointing the gun to your head and say, do this or do that. Nobody is forcing you to do it. You do it willingly by yourself. Or in Thai, they call it ทำโดยสมัครใจ การกระทำโดยสมัครใจ Voluntary act. Alright, which also means that when you are doing the action, you must have full control of your mind when you are doing it. So if you sign the contract when you are drunk, you have no control over your brain, right? And your friend pulls out a contract when you're very drunk, maybe in a karaoke bar or in a situation where in someone's house or whatever, when you're very drunk, your friend pulls out a contract to buy and sell your land and asks you to sign it. And you sign it. Alright, the next day you wake up in the morning, you have a massive hangover, a massive headache, and you say, oh my God, OMG, what did I do last night? Why did I sign that contract? Oh, I can't do anything about it now. There is no contract. The contract you signed last night, even though you signed it, yes, I know you signed it, but you did not sign voluntarily. You did not sign voluntarily. The action was not a voluntary act because you have no control over your mind. The same thing as a crazy person, the person in a mental institution, the crazy person in Sitania Hospital cannot sign a contract. Even though they signed it, it would not be a legal contract in the first place because it is not a juristic act. It's not a juristic act because it is not an action that is carried out voluntarily. Alright. The third one, the third characteristic is that it must be an action that has the aim, จุดประสงค์ goal, aim, objective, to create legal relations between persons. So it is an action that is carried out with some kind of a intention, เจตนา in the mind. The intention, the aim there is to create some kind of a legal relationship with the other person. For example, you take out a contract, you ask another person to sign. Right? You send a contract by email as an attachment file to the other person to sign. This is an action done with the aim to create the legal relationship. The legal relationship here is the contract. So, a juristic act must also be an action that is carried out with the aim to create legal relationship. Alright, and the last one, it seems very common sense. It must be a possible act, of course. Must be a possible act. It cannot be an impossible act. Alright, you cannot sign a contract with someone to say, I agree to kill a dragon for you. Right, it's impossible to find a dragon, or I agree to bring the moon down for you. Alright, it has to be a possible act. Okay. Alright, so let me just re-emphasize. In order for an action, any action, to come into our subject or any law subject, that action must be a juristic act in the first place. A juristic act means it must have all these four characteristics. It must bingo. It must have all four characteristics. If not, it is not a juristic act, and therefore you don't even have to look at it because it doesn't come into the subject. If you answer the question in the exam as if the action is a juristic act, you will get a 0 because the action is not a juristic act in the first place. So look carefully at the action first. That's the most fundamental point. The whole act itself, the whole action itself, is it a juristic action or not? A juristic action must have these four things, these four characteristics. It must be a lawful action. It cannot be an action that is prohibited by the law. It is an action that you done willingly. Willingly means nobody is pushing you with a gun to your head or a knife to your throat to say do it. Right? It is an action that you are doing with full control of your mind. Nobody is forcing you, or you have lost control with your mind because you were intoxicated with some drug or something. Nothing like that. Voluntary act done willingly with full intention, knowing what you're doing. Right? ทำโดยสมัครใจ is an action done with an aim. An action done with an aim to create some kind of a legal relationship between people. Legal relationship here, in most cases for you guys, is a contract. And of course, the act must be a possible act. It cannot be an impossible act that doesn't happen in this world. Alright? Now, I should mention here that the most common juristic act for you guys, or in fact, it is the only juristic act that applies to you guys in this subject. We talked about it all the time. It is the juristic act of a contract. Sanya. การทำสัญญา the making of the contract, the formation of contract is itself a juristic act. Later on when we go to contract, later on in the course when we go to contract, we have to talk about how is a contract formed. How is a contract born? What are the things that's required for the contract to be born? Yes, first of all, it has to be a juristic act. It has to have all these things, all these four things, yes. but there are other things required in order for the Juristic Act of a contract to be born. We'll come to that later on in the course when we talk about contracts. So for this part, on the Juristic Act part, this is all I have to say about it. I believe this part in your book is on pages 10 and 11. Okay.